Shonen anime loves to glorify the grind. Most convey the message that hard work is always rewarded, and that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel of persistent dedication. But let's be honest, training is a scam. Why would I spend years in the mountains mastering a Nen punch in Hunter x Hunter, when I could give a devil my right butt cheek and instantly get supernatural powers in Chainsaw Man? Today, we're ranking 18 anime power systems based on how they fit the slacker's lifestyle. We'll be looking for 3 main criteria: the barrier to entry, the skill ceiling, and the return on investment. We want the maximum amount of power for the minimum amount of effort. Each of the 3 criteria will have a basis of one simple question. For barrier to entry, how hard is it to get the first 10% of power? For skill ceiling, how much work is required to achieve 100% mastery? And for return on investment, is the time spent training actually worth the power you get out of it? Because let's be real, if the answer involves a gym or a library, the ROI is already looking pretty bad. I've split the list up into 5 tiers. The death sentence tier consists of universes where the training isn't just hard, it's lethal. If you don't die from the physical agony, you'll likely quit long before you see any results. The PhD required tier is for the systems that treat their powers like an advanced degree. Talent is a necessity, but not enough on its own. You're looking at years of meditation and studying theory just to master the basics. The blue-collar grind tier is honest work. There aren't many hacks or shortcuts. You get out exactly what you put in through straightforward physical conditioning and practice. The instant download tier is where things start getting interesting for us lazy folk. These include the shortcuts, high-risk gambles, or circumstances that give you power in a matter of seconds. Finally, we have the genetic trust fund tier. This is the absolute peak of strategic laziness. No need for training, studying, or risk-taking. You are simply built different. Now that everything's been laid out, let's get into it. At the bottom of the list is the death sentence tier. To refresh, these are the power systems that don't just want your time and effort, they want your life, where getting stronger is synonymous with suffering. Starting off the tier list is One Punch Man. Saitama's limiter-breaking secret sounds simple: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and a 10-kilometer run every single day. But just because something is simple doesn't mean it's easy. To master this power, you have to shatter your physical limits through sheer, monotonous agony until your hair falls out and you lose the ability to feel excitement. Barrier to entry? Physical torture. ROI? You're the strongest by a long shot, but you're also bored and bald. Hard pass. Dragon Ball is the progenitor and king of the infinite grind. To keep up in this universe, you have to spend your life in high-gravity chambers or fighting aliens in the desert until your hair changes color. And you better pray that you're born with the right DNA. Regular humans have almost no shot at the higher levels of strength. From a return on investment perspective, there isn't any. You are investing literal decades of training just to stay somewhat relevant against the next villain who will show up and one-shot you anyways. The skill ceiling in Dragon Ball is non-existent. You never actually finish training. You just find a louder scream and a shinier aura. For the lazy, this is nothing more than an endless shift at the world's most violent boxing gym. Now that we've survived our death sentence, let's move up to the PhD required tier. These systems don't necessarily want to kill your body, they want to fry your brain. Where the biggest obstacle isn't how much you bench, it's your GPA. Starting off this tier, we have Naruto. On the surface, it looks like a blue-collar grind, but this is just Rock Lee propaganda. You need a lot more knowledge than physical grit. You need to learn supersonic sign language just to throw a basic fireball. If you mess up one finger position, the whole move duds and you just wasted half your chakra supply for a puff of smoke. You're essentially doing mid-air calculus while someone tries to stab you, so you better make sure your knowledge is up to par. You can spend 30 years studying scrolls and mastering your chakra nature, but if you weren't born with a magic eyeball or a tactical nuke inside your stomach, you're just a glorified background character. Too much homework, not enough godhood. Bleach is basically a supernatural office job with a 400-year probationary period. To even get an interview, you need to be dead, which is a pretty steep admission cost. Once you're in, you're stuck in the Soul Reaper Academy for years just to learn the basics of managing your Reirokyu so you don't fall to your death while walking on air. The real deal breaker, though, is the relationship drama. A different kind of mental strain than the others in this tier. You have to spend decades, maybe even centuries, in deep conversation with your sword just so it will tell you its name. Talk about stubborn. Then if you want a Bankai, you're looking at an extra decade of conversational grinding minimum. You're trading in the entirety of your afterlife for no notable achievements and nothing more than a slightly cooler sword than what you started with. Bad trade. Full Metal Alchemist is the only anime that makes you conjure a master's thesis before you can throw a fireball. The barrier to entry is a chemistry final. You aren't just shouting an attack name, you're calculating molecular mass and drawing perfect geometric circles in the dirt while someone is trying to cave your chest in. The equivalent exchange sounds fair on paper, but in practice, for the lazy man, the math never adds up so easily. You spend years studying the periodic table to turn a lead pipe into a gold one, and the skill ceiling is so high it touches God. Literally. If you want to skip the homework, the only shortcut is the truth, and that costs an arm and a leg. Again, literally. It's a system built for the honor student who actually liked the library. For me, if I have to understand matter reconstruction to fix my radio, I'd rather go buy a new one. Next up is JJK, the genetic lottery with a side of math. This system manages to be both a headache and a gamble. The entry fee is a cursed energy tax that most people can't even pay. If you aren't born with the ability to perceive spirits, your career in sorcery is over before it even begins. And even if you win that lottery, your reward is to be handed a textbook on the laws of cursed energy that feels like a physics lecture. To hit the big leagues, you have to master domain expansions, which are essentially pocket dimensions built on complex personal philosophies and spatial geometry. For the lazy man, the mental load is just too high. I shouldn't need to become Einstein's heir just to exercise his spirit. Rounding off this tier, we have the undisputed champion of shonen PhDs, Hunter x Hunter. Nen isn't just a power system, it's a full-time career in risk management and contract law. The barrier to entry is a literal wall of murderous intent before you even learn what 10 is. The whole thing is a mess for lazy people, but by far the #1 deterrent is reaching the skill ceiling. You're expected to build a custom superpower from scratch using vows and limitations that require a legal team to proofread. To get any decent power, you have to trade away your lifespan or promise to stand in a bucket of ice and only use your left hand on a Tuesday. It's a system where its peak is directly tied to how much you're willing to ruin your own life. If I have to negotiate a 30-page terms and conditions agreement just to punch someone harder, I'm taking the day off. Moving into the blue-collar grind tier, we leave the libraries. These systems aren't about complex contracts or molecular biology. They're about using what you already have more creatively and reaching that conclusion through experience. Or living by the good old-fashioned saying, practice makes perfect. If you do the same move 10,000 times, you'll get stronger, or learn a new use for it. It's honest work, an improvement from the tiers before it, but still not something the lazy exactly love. Sakamoto Days may be the quintessential blue-collar power system. There aren't any supernatural abilities here. The power is simply a combination of insane physical conditioning and the know-how to turn a cough drop into a lethal weapon. The skill ceiling is only limited by how much you're willing to sweat. However, the ROI is a slap in the face for anyone who values a nap. To reach the top of the verse, you need to train until your reflexes are purely subconscious, and even then, your superpower is just being really, really good with a hammer. In Kaiju number 8, the dream of being a hero is buried under a mountain of government paperwork and mandatory cardio. You're handed a combat suit made of harvested monster muscle, but it doesn't just work for you. You have to convince it you're worth its time. Your power is measured by a released output percentage that basically acts as a real-time leaderboard for how much you're willing to suffer. If you aren't redlining your nervous system, you're just a guy in a very expensive, very tight wetsuit. The struggle here is that your superpower is essentially your tolerance for physical and mental burnout. If I wanted to fight for my life against a corporate ladder made of monster corpses, I'd just go back to my 9 to 5. At least they have good coffee. Next up is Gakyakuda, a system that forces you to become a hoarder with a work ethic. Here, power is fueled by your attachment to inanimate objects, creating a vital instrument out of literal garbage. You aren't gifted a legendary sword. You're just a guy who's worked a janitorial shift so long his broom started talking back. You're essentially a high-tech waste management specialist, grinding to reach the peak of your ability and finding more creative ways to hit things with your favorite household appliance. I'm all for sustainability, but I'm not interested in a power system that requires me to form a deep emotional bond with a discarded umbrella just to make my life a bit easier. In Demon Slayer, there are no shortcuts or genetic miracles. You're someone who's been told that if you breathe the right way, you can somehow survive a decapitation attempt. The system demands you force your lungs to work at 200% capacity until your ribs feel like they're about to pop. You spend years in the mountains dodging boulders and sprinting through thin air to learn how to oxygenate your blood to a superhuman degree. Even when you finally master this, you aren't actually summoning fire or water. You're just swinging a blade so fast and so hard that your sweat looks like special effects. If my survival depends on maintaining a perfect breathing rhythm while a demon tries to kill me, I'm probably just gonna hyperventilate and call it a day. Last up in this tier is One Piece, While some people get lucky and eat a devil fruit, most of the power system operates on haki, a power that is essentially your ambition weaponized through thousands of hours of getting hit in the face. It's a grind where you don't just learn a move, you spend decades on a boat, fighting weather, scurvy, and giant sea monsters to sharpen your spirit until it can punch through steel. Even the devil fruits aren't a free pass for the lazy. If you don't put in the work to master or awaken your fruit, you can't swim and accidentally turn into a jacket. To reach the apex of power, you have to clash with other legends for days at a time without sleeping to see whose ambition cracks first. It's a system where the best in the world are stubborn monsters who never stopped working. I'm not interested in spending years on a wooden raft to develop enough ambition to be able to punch a ghost. We've clocked in for our shifts. We've looked at the PhDs who studied until their brains leaked, and the blue-collar grinders who worked until their bones cracked. We're getting closer to the lazy man's dream. But first, let's talk about the instant download tier. This tier is for anyone who wants a shortcut, who doesn't want to earn their power through the library or the gym. Of course, the fine print here usually involves losing your soul or your humanity. But hey, at least you didn't have to do cardio. First up in this tier is Chainsaw Man, where power is a commodity you buy with pieces of yourself. There's no training arc and zero requirement for talent or potential. If you want a superpower, you just walk up to a devil and sign a contract. It's the ultimate shortcut. 1 minute you're a regular person, and the next, you're summoning a giant fox head to eat your problems. The catch is that these devils are the worst loan sharks in existence. They don't want your hard work, they want your skin, your eyes, or 5 years off your lifespan. It's a world built on desperate trades and immediate gratification that leaves you hollowed out by the time the bill comes due. I love a good shortcut, but I'm not exactly thrilled about a power system where the sign-on bonus involves trading in my kidneys. In Undead Unluck, you don't train to get strong. You wake up one day and find out the laws of physics no longer apply to you. Negations simply latch onto you, ignoring a specific rule of the universe, like death, luck, or change. You become a walking glitch in reality overnight, and suddenly you're capable of decapitating yourself as a hobby because you forgot how to die. The downside is that these powers are often a cruel joke played by the universe. Your shortcut usually involves accidentally erasing your loved ones, or becoming a permanent social outcast because you can't touch anyone without them exploding. To level up, you don't do push-ups. You have a philosophical breakthrough about what your power actually means. It's a system where your strength is tied to how much you're willing to break the world's common sense, which is great for the lazy, but terrible for anyone who wanted a normal life. Attack on Titan's power is gained through a simple medical procedure. If you want to become a god-tier weapon of mass destruction, all you need is a syringe filled with glowing spinal fluid and a willingness to stop being human. After all is said and done, you just bite your hand and let the lightning do the work. This shortcut comes with a brutal expiration date. You get all that city-destroying strength for free, but you only have 13 years to live once you've cashed in. You're essentially trading a long, normal life for a decade of being a sentient wrecking ball, and the power-up often involves inheriting the horrifying memories of the people who came before you. I'm looking for a life hack that makes my day easier, not a medical shortcut that turns me into a giant monster and puts me on a countdown to the grave. Last up in this tier is JoJo's. While there are a dozen ways to gain a stand, the gold standard is the arrow. You just need to get nicked by a piece of cursed space rock. If your fighting spirit is strong enough to survive the initial infection, you wake up with a stand. The catch isn't the workload, it's the total loss of a normal life. The second you download your stand, you become a magnet for every other freak with a punch ghost within a 10-mile radius. You can't even walk down the street without your life turning into a deadly guessing game of who's the enemy stand user, even though it's probably the guy in parachute pants and a neon pink mesh tank top. We're finally at the top of the tier list. The lazy man's dream, the pinnacle of maximizing reward while minimizing effort, the genetic trust fund. This tier is for the people who are spoon-fed their power from birth. No effort or sacrifice required. For the penultimate series of the list, we have Fire Force. This power system is basically a biological yes or no question. You don't learn how to control fire. Your body comes pre-installed with the ability to manipulate heat. If you're a third-generation pyrokinetic, you are a walking, breathing furnace that can generate its own fuel. You flex a muscle or snap your fingers and suddenly you're a human jet engine because your lineage decided you were special. You didn't work for the fire. You are the fire. I'm all for a life where my only daily requirement is waking up and being a walking sun while everyone else scrambles for a fire extinguisher. Last but not least is My Hero Academia. In this verse, your entire social standing is decided by a genetic coin flip that happens before you're old enough to tie your own shoes. Your body simply updates one day with a quirk. If you're lucky, You wake up with a biological cheat code that lets you manipulate gravity or create explosions. It's a world where hard work is nothing more than a hobby for people who already have amazing genetics. Leveling up your quirk is completely optional. If it's a very unique one or a high utility one, you don't need to do anything at all. An easy life is essentially handed to you on a silver platter. It's the dream setup for the truly lazy. You don't even have to be a hero to win. You just have to be born with the right power and watch as every door in life opens itself for you. So there you have it. From the absolute academic nightmare of Hunter x Hunter to the biological jackpot of My Hero Academia, we've mapped out the smartest ways to become powerful without breaking a sweat. But what did you think of my list? What universe are you picking for your easy mode life? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed, press like and subscribe. And remember, work smarter, not harder. Or better yet, don't work at all. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.